Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It's been a brilliant week in the world of Newcastle United. First game of the season, West Ham United, and then tonight we've had a blockbuster interview with Steve Bruce live on Total Sport on BBC Radio Newcastle, which I'm sure a lot of you logged in for and listened to. Tonight, I'm joined by the redoubtable Laura, who you may have seen on Match of the Day, making a guest appearance there.
Yeah.
How do you feel it today, Laura? Has fan mail been incessant since your appearance?
Yeah, if you didn't catch it, there was just 2 words used, crack and banter, and I'm in deep regret for the past week. I've been replaying it in my head all week, but hey-ho, doesn't matter.
You were all about the crack and the banter, Laura.
I was, and I wasn't even talking about my own crack and banter.
It's my message tone, by the way, just to let you know.
And just below me there, we have Sam. Hi, Sam. Welcome back. Great to see you again. You may have seen Sam on several... well, you're about to start a podcast. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we did a wee bit last year for Away the Lasses with Kendall, Sab and Katie.
Yeah.
So we just haven't planned when we're doing another one.
Nice one. But that'll be carrying on this season, yeah?
Yes, it will.
Brilliant. And what's your Twitter handle for that?
I don't know. I'll need to post it afterwards.
Maybe it's one of the girls.
Away the Lasses, I think.
Yeah,
is it at Away the Lasses?
I
anyway,
think.
check it out.
I'm gonna get crucified for that.
I know I dropped that on you, so that's my fault. That is my fault. That is my fault.
Yes,
10 minutes prep, and you didn't ask me that.
No, I did. I asked you about your podcast. I did say.
Yeah, but you did ask me what the Twitter handle was.
He just likes to drop things in, Sat.
I try to be as organised as possible, but sometimes there's a little brain fog comes in, and I like to go for it. But I do apologise. Okay, but do go and check it out on Twitter. Just search for it, you'll find it. And the lasses know that crack, they know their onions Newcastle United wise. So please do go and check that out. And of course, we're joined by newly appointed or newly positioned NUFC member.
Thank you. You just didn't want to say elected, in case you got it wrong.
I know. I was trying to avoid that word. Elected. We're before the watershed, and if I say anything inappropriate, then we could be in trouble. So
you made the mistake putting me on here, then. Jeez. All right.
Congratulations on that appointment. And Graham, also you've got some other projects with Anyone's Game. I know obviously Sam is involved with that as well. There's some really great articles and some really great content from there. But also, I believe you've got a book that's coming out will be of particular interest to Newcastle fans. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's about Gary Speed, called Speedo, the man behind the smile, because he had a cracking smile. And he's just a legend. Basically, it looks back on his whole career, not just Newcastle. It's got interviews with John Carver, Warren Barton, Paul Ferris, Bryn Law, among many other people. So it'll start off from his days at Hawarden High School, and then finish off at where he was managing Wales. So it's going to be a long one, basically. But it's a great thing to do because he was a brilliant man and a brilliant player.
Yeah. So whereabouts are you in the process of that? Is it ready to be released? Do you have a release date for it?
We haven't got a release date. I've got a date where I hand it into the publisher. It'll be through Pitch Publishing, but it will be out at the back end of next year.
Cool. And I'm sure your socials will be full of that. So when it does come out, please go and check that out.
Yeah, it'll be flooded. I'll be like, it'll be the only thing I tweet about.
Oh, that's fair enough.
Yeah, buy my book.
Yeah, well, you've got to do
one of them.
No, that's fine. So brilliant. So we've got some real good heads with us today. Unfortunately, you've got me trying to be the circus tamer, so I'll try my best to make sure that decorum is held all the way through. But I'm sure we'll get on to Greg's and different types of drinks. I'm drinking sangria and Fanta lemon, which is
what?
Tinto di Verano. It's a great
Wow.
drink. Boys and girls, check it out. It's a good Ibiza drink.
Wow. That's
There you
just thrown me there, like.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
man.
bit much for a Thursday. Like, what's
I
my
know.
way? Just a can.
Well, you know, I try to bring a little bit of culture with me Costco sangria and me Fanta Limon. Like, it's a great drink. It's a great combination. I'm straight out of the heat, so what can I say? Right, so let's get into it then. So after much ploughing to get his dream job, because he had a burning desire. These are just some quotes that I pulled from Steve Bruce's interview. Obviously, the big news over the last couple of days, we had the Joe Willock interview, which was a really interesting listen. And tonight, I think probably the majority of people were tuned in tonight for the interview with Steve Bruce. Now, it was a really interesting in parts. I suppose generally we'll get into some of the more specific questions, but I suppose just from a general point of view, Laura, what did you make of kind of the bits that you heard and listened to them? What kind of said?
Well,
We're going into too many specifics.
Yeah, obviously we'll get on the specifics later. But first of all, like, before it even went on air, I had wrote down, like, credit to him, to be fair. We'll whinge about him lots. He's very brave or brazen, however you want to look at it, to go on air and speak and take questions from fans who he knows aren't his biggest fan at all. But my opinion of it is, and it was kind of proven, is he's never going to give with the answers that we really would like. He's just going to beat around the bush or avoid the question or give a generic answer, and that was proven. But try and be positive, Graham. We're positive tonight. I know you're trying really hard. Yeah, credit to him for going on and speaking, but in my opinion, it didn't really give what we wanted.
What about you, Sam? What did you make of it? What was your impression of Brucey? Was it what you hoped for?
I didn't. Well, all the buzzwords come out. I think we joked about it in the WhatsApp group about the kind of things he was going to say, and yet again, they were, keep our good players fit, avoid injuries, hope we can get points. I thought there were some superb questions. I was a little bit worried at the start because it seemed a bit tame. There was a few people on Twitter that weren't particularly happy with the people that were asking questions and what they were asking. But I think there were a couple of left field questions that really surprised him. But a bit like Laura said, his answers were just, he's not the guy for me. He never will be. He's a good political appointment for the club and the situation that they're in. But he doesn't need to say too much because he'll always be given an easy ride. And I was a wee bit frustrated with maybe Steve Howe, for example. And, they're never going to call him out on anything. They're never, as we spoke about before, they're never going to go back on any points that he's made. They very much direct towards something else. But I was really proud of some of the questions that came through because it's the first time that I can remember in the whole time he's managed that he's been asked those questions directly, regardless of his answers, because as we said, we don't really expect much.
Yeah. Graham, were you filled with positivity by Graham Souness? Graham Souness. What about Steve?
I thought I heard you say that.
It was like,
I had the word Graham in my mind, and then it's like an identikit manager.
Of all the Grahams as well, you got him. Brilliant.
You're
anyway,
retire now.
He's an aggressive, handsome man. What can I say?
And he's looking very well.
I'm sorry, but
sorry. Back to you, Graham. Go on.
All right. Not really positive. I'm gonna try and be. Yes. I think it was good in the sense for him because there were a few questions, like Sam said, that caught him off guard, and he'll be able, hopefully, to sort of take that in now, and he'll maybe get a realization of what supporters think of him, and maybe try and build a few bridges. I don't know. This is me trying to be positive, by the way.
Yes,
so.
I like it.
I'm all about that.
So I think it was good from that point of view. so he can get a proper insight into how we feel and actually talk to fans. And credit to him for doing it, because we are a hard bunch to please. Like, sometimes, I mean, you just need to check on Twitter. Like, the last couple of days, it's been a bit mad. But I don't know. Credit to him for doing it, because it is difficult, isn't it? Like, would you face all of those fans? Just,
and
it's
to be fair to him, and I know we'll get onto it later, but what can he say? What can he really say? Like, he's the head coach, manager, whatever he is, and he can't say too much about signings or what goes on above him, because he was live on air on the radio. He can't really say too much.
That's the thing. Bruce will always have, he'll always have an uphill task, because no one really wanted him in the first place. So no matter what he says, he's always gonna get some form of criticism.
Yeah.
So I do feel for him in that kind of way, and he'll get no help from Mike Ashley or Lee Charnley, because they're happy to stay invisible. So it's all on him. So I do have a degree of sympathy for him in that sense, because he is the guy who will front everything, and there's things that are way beyond his control that he doesn't even have a clue about, but he has to answer questions on it. So it doesn't seem fair in that sense, but
But he signed up for that. It's his dream job.
Oh yeah,
it's what he wants to do. It's his rolling contract. He's one of us. So I mean, not
Sam's not having
argue
it.
that point. I'm not, because he gets wheeled out in the media and comes out with all these sound bites that he thinks they fit the narrative of everyone that's not a Geordie, or a portion of the Geordies that are really frustrated by what's going on at the minute. They are just sound bites. So he's not walking away. He is rolling out everything that he's been told to, and he's happy to stick with it. And that's where I get frustrated, because it is in his hands and he chooses to do it.
Yeah. But do you think, I think obviously it's of all the times, I think he alluded to the fact that Matthew Raisbeck had been sort of trying to get him on Radio Newcastle for a long time. And I think the first, after the first game of the season is probably the easiest. I mean, if there's any easy point to come into a Newcastle interview with the fans on the other end of the phone, I think probably the start of the season is the easiest time where you can say what you're going to do. Think about, you've got, it's a bit of a wonder whether he would actually do this at January time. Will he do it towards the end of the season if things haven't been going so well? So I think
fans forum.
Yeah, I think
get in the fans forum. It's easy to do it over radio, but is he prepared to go in front of fans and have those same conversations? I don't think so, and I don't think he would ever be asked to.
I think what's lacking, obviously, is like you say in a forum sort of situation, is you can have that back and forth, can't you?
Yeah.
And there was a couple of callers who actually did go back to him a little bit. I think Albert from Wooler did a really great job kind of going back at him. But whether, in radio, is that possible? The caller might have just been muted after that point. So, where, anybody, say probably Albert wasn't, because he's a frequent contributor to the show. So, but yeah, it was there was some elements that I thought was a little interesting insight. I think some of the questions, I think, Sam, you're right. I think some of them were quite interesting questions, but I think they kind of eased them in a little bit. There was a few early questions about rotation and about what does your normal day look like? I'll wake up, I have a bacon sandwich,
I walk my dog.
But
fans are nice to me.
I walk my dog. The fans are writing newsletters to us and stuff like that. So I think Gallowgateshots contributor and long-time friend of the pod, Daryl, he managed to get his question in about the relationship with the fans, about you know, about what is our expectation, because I remember, I could be wrong, and I probably am, and I'm sure the comments will back that up, but I'm sure he went on to, he was quite big on Talk Sport. He was certainly more animated on Talk Sport than he was on Total Sport, I found, actually. And about the expectation, that word expectation. And Laura, what did you make of his response to, or non-response, or to Daryl's question? What did you make of that, Laura?
Again, I think he just didn't really, he was a bit like a politician was, didn't he? He didn't really answer it. He just kept saying, I know what they want. I know what they want. Yes, so what do we want? He mentioned a couple of cup runs, didn't he? And he said, was that question when he talked about the cup runs and how he said, we got beaten off a Man City side. So it's a cup. Anything can happen in a cup. It doesn't matter that it was Man City. Anything can happen in a cup. And then he talked about the other one that shan't be named that we just didn't perform. And I know Daryl was fuming, wasn't he? Because he was like, he didn't answer my question properly. So I just don't think he answered it properly. I don't think. But then again, I'm not defending him, but what can he say? Like what Daryl, I know you're watching. What would you want him to say? Like what would you have been happy with? Because
you've poked the bear now.
I don't mean that like nasty or like argumentative. I just like, because at the end of the day, he isn't gonna say, oh well, yeah, you do expect too much, and you do expect this, and you do expect that, because we don't. And then I think, I don't know which host it was, but he actually did come in and say they just want a team that tries and fights and blah blah blah, all the cliches. But yeah, that is actually just what we want. We want to be entertained. We want to see goals. We want to see a plan. We want to see a plan B when plan A doesn't go the way we want. We want changes when it's not going well. We don't want like ridiculous things. We just want a bit ambition and a bit fight.
Sam, what did you make of, you know, his comments about you know, he wants what's best ... You know, could you be any more vague about that, or what? You know,
he has no idea what fans want. It's not silverware. Like it's like what everyone else says about the Newcastle fans is that we're reaching. We're not. And I put it in the WhatsApp group. We want to win 3 games in a row. He's never won 3 games in a row since, I don't know, I'm going to say 2009. I'm probably wrong. We just, you know, I get the graft and the trying and the heart and all of that. And that, you know, yes, we're getting closer to that. But we want to win 3 games in a row. We want to be competitive as a side. And, you know, Laura, absolutely get your point about being entertained, and that would be the dream. But I'd actually just like to be in more games and grafting to get those 3 points. Entertainment for me has not been a factor in our football in so long, and it's just such an easy reach for everyone else to throw at us. We want cups, we want runs, we want entertainment. No, we would like a run of games where we win, rather than what we had last season, which was we won 2 in 20, and our expectations are unreasonable when we win 2 games in 20. So you go from that where that's unreasonable, and then you're told you're reaching for the stars. So as I said at the start, I don't think he understands what we want. And I think between certain sections of the fan base, it can get a little bit muddled. The dream is to win a cup. The dream is to win the league. The dream is to sign £100 million players. That's the dream. But the reality is we want a decent competitive team that can churn out win after win.
We just don't want to be fighting relegation every single year. We don't want to be like, oh, what's going to happen by Christmas? We're going to be in the bottom 3. We just don't want that. We don't want to be in a relegation fight every single season. We want to just be, like you say, Sam, slightly more competitive.
I think
I don't want a manager. Just last point, I don't want a manager telling me after we've just been beaten 4-2 that we played well for 60 minutes. And he focused more on the positives than the fact that we actually got beat 4-2 and conceded 4 goals which is a rolling trait. And I was glad that someone brought that up today. It was like, you've ruined a really good defense. And you talk about all these defenders that you have that can't defend because we have such a bad defense record. So, you know, he's so contradictory. And that's it for me.
I think for me, I'm going to come on to the next point to you in a second, Graham. But I think for me, every time that he does speak, he just shows that he seems to lack any real sort of like knowledge of the real detail of, you know, facts and figures. And I think he said something like about Joe Linton, saying, well, Joe Linton didn't play at the weekend. Because somebody questioned him about his 40 million, or the board telling you have to play him, and he said, well, he didn't play at the weekend. You're like, unless I'm very much mistaken, I saw number 7 lumbering on the pitch and do.
But again, that just shows that he takes no notice of subs or changes or tactical decisions. He just whacks it, turns around, looks at the bench, think, who can I whack on? Right, Joe, go on.
Yeah.
But he also said about Sean Longstaff, he's made 50 appearances, and that would make you think 50 starts. And then you think, how many of those were coming off the bench for small amounts of time? Yeah. So then he was like, actually, if you look at all our centre-backs, they made 20 appearances last season. And it's like, an appearance could be 90 minutes, or it could be 2 minutes. And it could be in the right position, or it could be wherever you choose to put them, which apparently he doesn't play players out of position. So, you know, he has everything that fits his narrative. Yeah.
So, Graham, just coming to you, there was one part of the interview where actually it was the first time I heard Steve Bruce in any interview actually sort of almost take a second breath and actually something seemed to register when one of the fans talked to him about playing the club down or the team down. Really, you know, he talks about the big six, but somebody made a comment about, he
had like a light bulb moment, didn't he? It was just like, oh, right, okay, I am doing that. But like that kind of goes back into your other question, like about expectation and stuff like that. But for me, there's one word that sums it all up for me, and it's progression. I just want to see my side progress. I don't want to see it stagnate and regress constantly year on year, because that's what we're doing. And that's not all down to Steve Bruce. Like he's a big part of it at the moment, but you know, the way he talks down the club doesn't help in the slightest. So we're playing like Brentford or whatever. They're a really cracking side. They're going to be really tough to break down. I don't care, Steve. Why don't you talk us up and say, look, St. Maximum will cause all sorts of bother, you know, something like that, you know. Just say, I think our strikers will be up for the game, we've got a really good chance, or something. Just you know, something a bit more positive. I know, hey, look who's talking, but I mean, just give me something, like,
I think you listen, and I'm not going to go back to what previous manager, because it's easy to do so. So let's just look at other managers in the league. I know I won't say his name. Other managers in the league, they don't go into a game saying, they're going to be a really good team. They go into the press conference or whatever, and they say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to deal with it. They talk tactically. They talk pragmatically about what they are going to do. They don't just big up the other team, which is what I think it was Daniel who called in and said about the negativity. But like you say, it was a bit like, and we spoke about it before we came on air, about, I thought that it was a bit like, he didn't even know he was doing it. That's what he seemed. I know Sam doesn't agree, and she thinks that he does, but I know it seemed from what he put across he was like, do I do that? I'm sorry. Point made was the phrase that he used. So let's see what he says about Villa on Saturday. Let's see if that is in the back of his mind, and it'll be very interesting to see his press conference.
I don't think it will change, unfortunately, as much as I want it to. I just feel like he goes in to any interview like with a select kind of monologue, if you will, of things that he's gonna say no matter what, and then it's just kind of robotic. So like with previous managers, I won't say his name either, but like it was more natural because he didn't really have to think about what he was saying, and he meant it basically, and it wasn't sort of rehearsed. I feel like with Steve Bruce, it's rehearsed a lot of the time, and it's always
he was
in the
into
back
the
of the
detail, wasn't he? He was into the detail of every game, and he was.
It's just always there because he says it every week. So then it becomes really robotic, and that's why I think fans get really frustrated because he's not saying anything new. He's just saying the same old every single week, and we do it. We play Brucey Bingo like every week because you know for a fact he's gonna say at least 10 of the same things, and he does.
Yeah.
Like tonight, I could have written down like 4 or 5 paragraphs of what he was gonna say, and it would have been word for word, guaranteed. And that's what frustrates me the most. It's not natural for me.
Yeah, I think sorry, Roger. I think there was 2 questions, and this just sums them up. To be honest, there were, from what I heard, I didn't hear the whole thing. There was 2 questions that really like struck a nerve, and it was about the bosses telling them about Joe Linton to play, and then the other one was about Graham Jones, and that I felt was the real Bruce coming out because it was attacking him. So he was like, "No, he actually was like, that's bull. That is bull. That they told me."
Do you think that I'm gonna?
Yeah. Do you think after 20 years in this business, in this industry, do you think I'm going to let somebody do that? And those were the only 2 questions that was like, whoa. And it sums him up. I was so egotistical. He was like, nobody tells me personally that someone's better than me. No one tells me what to do. And those were the only 2 that I thought weren't rehearsed. And it was like the real him, like firing back.
Yeah. It was like a drunk Saturday night in Spoons, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you did happen to miss it, with work commitments or otherwise, if you had a leaky bath or anything like that, Jake Ray, I think he'd been asking about in the comments there whether it was going to be streamed or where you could find it. I think you probably find it on the BBC Sounds app. I think they've done.
Yeah, I missed it live. I just went on BBC Newcastle's Twitter, and you can listen to it.
There you go. Always helpful, those guys. Always helpful. So like I say, it wasn't sort of like no. I think few comments, no earth-shattering news, but there was some interesting questions about. Or I found interesting about talking about the game specifically on Sunday. About he used the phrase "we vacated midfield." Now,
do we even have a midfield?
Now I did promise that I was going to wait for 10 games, but this is one consistent with me with Bruce. With other managers, they seem to be, reacting to what they've just seen. Like you were saying, Graham, some managers will really analyze the game. They've watched it and their brain's ticking over and analyzing the game as it's happening, and they haven't got this stock answer. Whereas Bruce always sounds to me like, when he reviews a game, it's like he already knew what he was going to say, like you were saying. But he talks about it as if he's been sat in the Gallowgate end, having no influence over what's actually going on the pitch. Like he did say he's a big fan. He was a big fan of Newcastle. Maybe he's taken that completely literally, and he's just really. He's one of us in the stands, and he's actually got
season ticket out of his back pocket.
Yeah, he's got no influence. He said, like when he said we vacated midfield. Well, you took off a centre midfielder for a fucking winger, like, and then for 14 minutes we played with Isaac Hayden, who I do like, and I think he could be a valuable player in the team in a defensive sense, but there was. I think somebody said on the show, actually, they could have built another St. James's Park in the space that were left. And they were absolutely right. And, I think when I was listening to the lads on the other day, they said, I think it was Matty said about the midfield and, well, what do you expect? You've taken off these players like,
You know what it is, though.
Like Graham Jones had gone to the toilet and he just made this decision to like, oh, I've made a tactical change there, Graham, and it was absolutely madness. But it was good that somebody kind of did bring that up. But his answer was like, oh, it's yeah, we didn't answer. I agree. It was like, I agree, and I think in one of the comments, obviously, every answer was prefaced with. Yeah. That's a good question. Like, really,
I'll take it on board. I'll take it on board. Well, no. How many times has that happened to us in a game where he's played players out of position, he's took the wrong player off and replaced them with a completely different player in a different position, and he never learns. So it is just I know it just popped into my head there. It reminded us of a podcast, Under the Cosh, Rowan Vine. Always, he really didn't like Bruce as a manager, and he said he just literally would hoy 6 striker if they were getting beat, hoy 6 strikers on and hope for a goal. There was nothing tactical. There was nothing like a plan in place. It was like just throw all your strikers on and hope for a goal. And that is him to a T. He doesn't make any tactical decisions.
I think the thing for me is not just in the midfield in general, but as a team. I'm gonna say his name. And I'm gonna, you know what? And I'm gonna say different managers as well. But Rafa Benitez, right? Under Rafa, right? I love the guy. So does a lot of people. Sorry, don't come at me. But the thing is, there was so much fight in that midfield, in the defence, up front. There was so much fight, hunger in that side. And we've pretty much got, 90% of those same players. And it's so one-paced now. Like, there's not much of an identity. There's not much closing down. There's not much pressurizing because they don't have a clue what they're doing because it's not being instructed to them. But then I'll say this: like, if you brought in, I'm trying to think of someone like, if you brought in like Sean Dyche. He is really underrated, in my opinion, and a lot of people don't like him. But he would give them a lot more hunger, a lot more fight because of the way he speaks, of the way he talks to the players. Bruce doesn't do that. I feel like he's very, what's the word? Mellow, maybe. He's mellow, and he talks to them as like they're his mates or like his sons or something like that, which is all nice and that, but you know, sometimes they need a rocket up their arse.
Yeah.
Right. So so Sean Longstaff is an example of this. He's a cracking lad, brilliant player. He can be, but for me, he's been off the boil since he had that injury, and that's understandable, and I get that. It takes a long time to recover from it. But what he needs is someone to kind of slap him about a bit and say, look, you need to do this with your game. And I feel like he's not getting that. And that's why he's regressed. And that's why a lot of the players have regressed, because they're not getting that instruction from the manager. So they're like school kids, right? They're like naughty school kids. So they feel like they can get away with stuff.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the sense under Rafa.
I've said that before on this podcast. You're all, as a job, as a kid at class, you're always going to like the teacher or the boss who lets you do what you want. Your shelvies, do what you want, and you'll still play every week. Do what you want. You don't like the stricter manager, the stricter teacher, because they tell you what to do and they have high expectations. Like Rafa, they all had a job. They knew what to do. He worked them so hard, and that's why they didn't like him. They didn't like him because everything was to the point. Everything was down to a T, planned, precise. Everything had to be done that way, and that's why we did as well as we did under him with the squad that we had.
I'll tell you what now. I bet you they miss him now though. When they keep looking at the table and going,
result,
oh God.
I think whether the players miss him, I think probably, they probably notice, like the detail is missing there. Like probably when he talks, I can imagine a team briefing where he's making several small mistakes around how many games people have played or what the last 5 results were or what, you know. And I think you would notice that as a in any environment, you know, outside of football, you would notice if your boss wasn't completely on it. And like Laura's saying, like we've all kind of recognized that you do start to, there's a natural laxness that'll just come into your lifestyle, into the way that, you know, I think that's why we pick up so many injuries, because there's not the detail. That's why Callum Wilson, he talked about Callum Wilson with his injury towards the end of the season. Well, yeah, because he's our only striker. So you have to play him week in and week out.
Yeah.
And that's why we pick up all these, you know, these injuries. So I think, you know, that you're absolutely right. I think it's just, you know, the lunatics running the aside. I do think Steve Bruce would make a really good number 2. Like, he's like, I think Matty had said that in one of the other podcasts. Like, he would make a good number 2 with a really astute, not necessarily young, but younger manager. I think Bruce could be a good foil for that in terms of...
He's like a Sammy Lee.
Getting that
Sammy Lee was the perfect number 2.
Yeah.
He was a terrible manager, but he was the perfect number 2.
Yeah.
But he's tried to do that. And just on the point of the Rafa Bruce, if we see Sean Longstaff leave Newcastle to go to Everton, that will tell you everything that you need to know about the managerial impact. That guy will be in the England squad if he goes to Everton and plays under Rafa.
Well, the thing is, there you're talking about Longstaff. We were rating him at, what was it, 50 million 2 years ago? Not even 2 years ago, and now we've put a £10 million price tag. That shows how far he's gone. Even in
somebody
like
asked
today's
that
prices
question today, and Bruce was just like that was one of the perfect questions for me. It is, you know, this guy was, and you always say under the previous manager, this guy was on top of his game. He was being coached within an inch of his life. You know, people were comparing him to Declan Rice. Which one's better? There's rumours that Man United want to buy him. And now the guy has a year left in his contract at his boyhood club. He doesn't want to sign it. You're blaming an injury for the fact that he's not playing. And then when he's playing, he's getting criticised for not being good enough. Well, who's the common denominator in this? Steve Bruce.
That question was where I wanted a bit more interaction from the caller or from the host to say. He was talking about the injuries, and he was talking about Matty just, I know we're talking about Sean, but Matty just needs to go out and get games and need games, right? So my question there would be, well, why aren't you giving them then? Why aren't you giving them the games?
Even under 23 games, he doesn't include them in. Like he's there's a personality problem there that he won't address.
Maybe they're the moles. Possibly they were the moles.
That was the rumor.
I would have.
My problem is if you're the owner of the club and you're thinking, right, well, I don't want to spend money. Why is more pressure not being put on him? I think it was towards the end of last season. It was like, you need to play these guys. But if the owner doesn't want to spend money, why is he not being forced to do more with these players coming through in the club? I don't get it.
Do you not think that, you know, that Bruce could have made things so much easier for himself by coming in, acknowledging, look, we haven't got a lot of money, but I've got these 2 lads in the academy. I'm going to try and, you know, and
absolutely.
I for one, speaking completely for myself, would be like, I would accept that, you know, if he just like said, look, I've got these 2 young, enthusiastic lads. They're a bit raw, you know, they need some good coaching, which sadly we're probably not going to get in the current state of affairs. But if they were, you know, when that void opened up on Sunday, why didn't Sean Longstaff, like, for me, I think if we just very briefly touch on the West Ham game, we were really effective when, I mean, I'm not a fan of Shelby, we all know that. But when Shelby played further forward, even if he just played 10, 15 yards further forward, we are a much better side. Like, he was key in those movements around getting those goals. So, you know, a Sean Longstaff plays a little bit further up and naturally, whereas Shelby's natural disposition is to drop back and want to quarterback stuff, which suffocates our defence. We drop back 10, 15 yards and we're knocking balls up channels to Callum Wilson, who's then got to kind of feed on whatever we've got and then hope that Alan St. Maximum comes on our 6-yard box and dribbles past everybody and scores. It just fucking does me head in. Anyway,
that's the thing with Shelby though. He on Sunday it was the John Joe Shelby game that kind of epitomised what we've seen over the last couple of years. Like, he showed glimpses of utter brilliance. I think it was a ball over the top to Callum Wilson that was just he made it look so effortless, and it was a ridiculous ball to make. And he can do that, but then there's other things where he's just, I wouldn't even call it jogging. He's literally just stood still and staring and going, "Oh, hey, that's my guy. I'm supposed to be marking him. Oh well, I'll have a cup of tea. Never mind, eh?"
Yeah.
Right. So what is that
There he
about?
goes.
Just yeah, and it's just annoying. It's Lazy does get booted about a bit, and that's why, because it feels like he's not, just do something.
But then you look at the coaching team and he talks about this team. So it's not just him. He's got this coaching team. He's got all the Steves. He's got Graham. They're looking at this squad, and I feel like they are trying to accommodate John Joe Shelby being not the most mobile. I don't want to call him lazy, because I just think he's very selective in what he does. So they've taken an Isaac Hayden, who is a defensive midfielder that can sit in front of our defence, which is unfortunately really poor, no matter how many defenders he puts in there. He's moved him to be more of a box-to-box because he's athletic, even though he is not that player. You see him getting over the halfway line. He doesn't really have that impact. He's making these tactical changes to people's roles that I don't think suit them. Miggy as well. He talked him up today. I don't think he's very effective in the middle. So he's trying to accommodate certain players by moving them around, and I actually don't think it's the right thing for the team, and I'm finding that really frustrating at the minute. We've taken a defensive midfielder away from the back, however many he wants to play, to make it more mobile. Put John Joe Shelby there where he's not as effective, and he actually, isn't, the defence aren't pushing up, so we're dropping back, and we're really poor at defending. So we're causing all our own problems, and we've just started a new season where this is this is how we started, making our own problems.
I think the thing that really frustrated me is, you can talk about the penalty all you like, but it was shocking defending before that anyway. But the thing is, as soon as that went in, I was like, "Oh, we've lost this." So if I'm having that reaction, because you can tell the players are having that reaction, their heads are gone, like Sam said, and that's it straight away, and that's a mentality thing. Yeah. See, with days gone by, we didn't have that, so we'd maybe go we maybe have been 2-0 up, and then it gets back to 2-2 or something, and then there was more of an energy in the side, but to kind of make it right again. But for me, under Bruce, it's not there, and it just negativity just sort of swarms around the pitch, and that's it.
I think with the whole, it just really epitomizes what we're kind of talking about here. Is really just epitomizes the whole club, that there's no ambition beyond. Yeah.
Oh, it's a ghost club at the minute.
So there's never any accountability, and kind of once the chips are down, the kind of the next game, roll our sleeves up, and then
it's like what you were saying though. Would we be happier if Steve came out and said such and such? Of course we would, because at least then he's been honest. Yeah. So it all boils down to how you talk to people, how you interact with them. And I agree with that. We do miss Mo Diarmi. I said that, I tweeted it out a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I'm going to say it. I miss him. Yeah. But the thing is, it all boils down to how you interact with people. You can look at previous managers. You can, even Chris Hughton, right? He wasn't the best manager tactically or whatever, but geez, he was a good communicator.
What a guy.
And he got people motivated, and he would get fans on side, and he would make you feel like, oh, you know what, we might not be in a good place now, but we can be in like 5-6 games time. But with Bruce, I feel like it's like just the end of the world every time he speaks. I'm like, Jesus, like
The world's finished.
We're in the Vanarama conference here, aren't we? What's going on?
I think kind of just to tie up some of those, just obviously the appearance on Total Sport tonight. I think two just really quick ones on interesting questions. I think Lee had asked about this. Changes don't happen overnight, and I think pal of mine, Mark Duffy, I saw him put on Twitter, well, he's been a manager for 738 days or whatever it was. I'll probably get that number wrong. Like, how long is overnight? And I think that was one of those opportunities where, by the sound of when Lee was on the call, he probably had been given the opportunity. He probably would have went back to him and said, well, come on, because he said, well, I've had 4 transfer windows. And at that point, we say, well, yeah, you've spent X amount.
That's the thing that really
more than previous managers. And
You've ruined our defence.
So I think, and he said, we've got to be better than 4th bottom. Well, he was advocating for that towards the end of last season, I'm sure. And then with a bit of luck, these phrases. And I think, Sam, I'll just give you the opportunity to riff on these square pegs and round holes, if you don't mind. Or
to do what, sorry?
It was interesting, the call about these square pegs and round holes. One of the callers had said about, I think Simon Pride was on about texts he'd had from Sunderland and Villa fans, and now Newcastle fans saying that Bruce had an affinity for playing these square pegs and round holes, players out of positions, and he kind of rebuffed that. What do you reckon?
Oh my goodness. So, first of all, to that caller, whoever it was, that was superb. The fact that he brought other teams into it to show that it's not just us and our histrionics, I really appreciated that. But then the fact that he kind of said about the game on Sunday that he hadn't played anyone out of position, it really just hit home to me that there are certain players in that squad that he has decided are now players in that position, like Emil Kraft, for example. He is a fullback, but he's also a pacey right-handed central defender, which the guy has never played before.
Yeah.
But he will justify that that's the way that it is. The caller that called out the wing-backs, perfect. But again, defensive. Yes, they are better going forward. They do need to work on being defensive. Right, well, we're shipping goals. When's that going to come? Almiron is apparently now a central midfielder. Who knew? He talks about our forward options, and all of a sudden, Fraser, Almiron, Gale, Wilson, he's trotting them all out as these are our options. He has obviously swallowed the line that Charnley or Mike have told him, that you have these players and they can potentially play in these positions. So therefore, I want you to say that we're covered in those areas. So I think by my guesstimate, we had 4 or 5 players out of position, natural position on Sunday, and he maybe said 1. And
Laura, I was thinking, Laura, there was a question about philosophy that Bruce really stumbled over.
I missed that one.
Oh, it was classic. Graham, did you hear that one about?
I did, yeah.
The philosophy.
Oh, what did you say? Tell us.
So the call, I think, was called Michael, and again, what a great question. It was about really what is our philosophy, and it was a bit like Daryl's question at the start about expectation. It was a kind of question.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, I know what you want, and basically what the caller wanted to know was how we're going to play. Like, what's our style of play? What's our identity? If you look at all the teams in the league, you can probably say, oh, they play this way. Like, But with us, you're just like, what do we do? Pass it to Alan and hope he scores?
If you want to turn it into a positive, every match day, you're like, ooh, who's going to play? What we're going to play? What it's going to be like? What Newcastle's going to turn up? That's the only slight positive.
Yeah.
It's a bit like unpredictable. Like you just don't know what you're going to get.
We could have some
Like
wild
blind
drinking
date
games,
for
like
football.
I think it's a lot like when he was answering some of the questions. It was a bit like if you watch Coming to America, where at the start Prince Akeem's going to get married to that lady, and he's like, "What music do you like?" And she's like, "I like what you like." You know, like it was like when you have that awkward conversation with a partner or whatever, and you're trying to they've got something on their mind, and you're like, "No, I like, I want to do what you want to do," and you're like, "What the fuck do they want to do? I don't know."
it was like he was on a first date or something, trying to really impress him. Like, oh, but I know what you like, and we'll just go with that.
It's something really unspoken that we can't really describe. Is it really this?
I'll probably regret saying this, but I did that once. It was like, "Oh, so what you like doing?" "Oh, I'm like really outdoorsy, love the outdoors." "Oh, why don't we go and do this walk?" And I was I do that, and we got there and we got lost because he thought I knew where to go, and I didn't.
It's your fault. You've been giving him advice.
We need to get you on who does first the PR. Geordie first dates. That's what we need you on. But yeah, I think in all, that like at the top, what Sam said, there was some good questions. There was some questions that were a bit softball, which I think what that kind of reminded me of, and that's very obvious that the whole world doesn't exist on Twitter. You've got Albert from Wooler, who's probably
legend.
So a lot of these guys are like match going, die hard, through thin and thin and thin. They've been watching the tune, and some of the questions, although yes, you can say they're quite soft, but actually they're questions from the fan base. I didn't doubt that any one of those fans weren't genuine fans, and they might want to find out what he does day to day. And I think like sometimes we need to get out of our space. Of like the old
podcasters, all right?
Yeah, the all consuming podcast world and Twitter world where like everything's like whereas there are people who just want to know the simple questions like, what do you do on a typical day? Quite
have a cup of tea and then I'll walk
my dog. So it was there was some interesting takeouts from it, but I think we all kind of had an idea of there would be a straight bat played for pretty much every question, apart from those times where he did let his guard down a little bit, which was interesting. And I think, although I might not like Steve, my ideal would be we'll win something and everything ends up rosy, but I've got a feeling that possibly
all I want, right? This is all I want, right? And it's such a small thing. I just want him to go into a press conference, right? Nothing sort of, written down in his head or whatever, and just be natural. That's all I want. And you can talk about football all you want. Like, to a degree, like back end of last season, we played some really good stuff. And that's fine. That is great. But the thing that really gets me frustrated is how he talks to people and how he talks to the fans and about the club. And that gets you so frustrated before the game's even kicked off. And that just gets you in a negative mindset. And if that's getting the fans in a negative mindset, think of the players listening to it. You know what I mean? And that's snowball, isn't it?
I think, and on your point about thinking about the players, obviously he did mention towards the end about Caldolo and about obviously he's been struck down quite considerably by COVID. I believe he's been he said he'd been
he's lost like a stone and a half. I put on half a stone. I'd like to know how he did that.
Give him a call.
Different variant, maybe. I don't know. Maybe, I think this new variant comes with like with like sickness and diarrhea and all that, all the joys of that. So maybe
it's Carl.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Laura wants to know how you lost 2 stone.
I'm just jealous because I put it
Carl.
on.
Like, oh, you,
So I
you
think,
licked the door
obviously-
handle. Okay.
We know all the players watch these podcasts, so obviously we send our best wishes to
What's
Carl
in
Doran.
Yeah,
Speedy
and
recovery.
what I will say to Carl is, thanks for listening. But what I will say is, good luck for your future role as a centre midfielder.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he could be good with his feet. You
Wow.
never know. So I think kind of we've covered a lot of the topics around the phone in. We've just got a few minutes left. I think we'll very quickly just touch on the West Ham game. We're going to go 2 stars and a wish in a true teacher fashion. So when you're marking books, sometimes you would, even for your kids who can barely string a sentence together, you'd always do 2 stars and a wish, and you give them. This is probably why we don't win stuff anymore, but because we're so supportive of our children failing. But we say 2 stars and a wish, so 2 things we did well and 1 thing we didn't. So really quick fire, 2 stars and a wish. I did prepare you for this one, so
Yes,
no
but then
excuses.
But Roger, you said you were going to do it at the start, so I've threw me a bit of paper over there. I can't remember what I
Laura,
said.
We're talking about preparation. He gave us 3
It's all
minutes
right,
and 20 seconds, by the way.
I've recovered.
Anyway,
Yeah, 3 minutes. 3 minutes is a long time.
I think Laura should start us off.
Yeah, go Laura.
So-
Fine, I got it.
2 stars
right.
and a wish. 2 things you like, 1 thing to improve. What do you reckon?
First, Wilson and Murphy getting their first goals in front of a crowd. Second, I was very entertained in the first half. I thought it was a really good attacking. Good. And actually, can I have 3?
No.
And it's going to be quite nasty, but I really need to get my dig in. Like, the third one is I loved how the goal was on 40 minutes. So all the people next to me that were shouting at me for not singing and not being loud enough, they all went for a pint and missed it. So I was buzzing about that because they left early. Yeah, it really,
you lot in
yeah,
the
it
strawberry-
really was.
In the
bugging
strawberry
it.
corner, have
Yeah.
some of that.
I
Right,
hope they're not
Sam,
watching.
2 stars
No,
and a
I
wish,
haven't even
Oh,
finished.
no, you need your
my
wish.
that. Yeah, my wish.
Come on then.
Well,
What's
it's
your
just
wish?
obvious. Just better defending. That's simple as that.
Sam, 2 stars and a wish, please.
First star is Freddie Woodman starting in goal. I'm such a big fan of him, local lad. I really, really hope that he gets a chance to stay with the club because I think he's future. Second is I thought we attacked really well. I'm not going to say for 60 minutes because I don't know where Bruce is getting these 60 from, but first half
45.
especially, yeah, we were so good in their half. And then my wish is that we could be better in our half because that defending, I was very active on Twitter. It was absolutely horrendous. I've seen under 10s defend better. All watching, not tracking the runner. We have had a whole summer to defend set pieces and stop crosses getting into the box. And we have done no work on it whatsoever because it's exactly the same thing that I was complaining about last season and a lot of other people are, that we put ourselves under pressure because we can't stop a cross or we can't mark a man. And that really worries me because, as I said, we're just starting a new season and it's the same problems.
Thank you, Sam. Graham, 2 stars and a wish from you.
Okay, right. Okay, my first star. It was just nice to see an almost full St James's again.
Yeah.
It was quite emotional actually. Look at me, tearing up already. But no, it was nice.
You old sentimental fellow, you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Enough of this positivity. God, what is this? No, it was just nice after 18 months of watching empty stadiums. Like, nah, not having that. But it was just nice to see everyone again. Second was just, especially in the first half, like the genius that is Saint Maximin. Like, what does he have for breakfast, man? Like, he's just unreal, and I just love watching him play. I think he's outstanding. My wish is for us to be able to string more than 3 passes together.
Yeah. So Sam, you're
That's all I
asking
want.
big for 3 wins. We just need 3 passes.
I just want 3
3
passes.
passes,
That's
not
it.
1, 2 hoof.
You know what? It can even be, because we even get this wrong. It can be from like Woodman to Fernandez, back to Woodman, back to Fernandez. It can be that, because I
I'd be
feel
really
like,
panicky there.
yeah, well, we'll probably
Exactly,
concede,
which is the
I'd be
problem.
like, "Ah."
but at least we strung 3 passes together, though.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
concede.
When was the last time we did that?
Yeah, who knows?
About 6 years ago, I think.
I think my stars and me 2 stars and my wishes. ASM sending Declan Rice into a race pudding.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant.
Oh, that was
Ambrosia.
unbelievable.
Yeah, that was really good. And I think as well, like I echo, I think it was Laura said about Jacob Murphy getting his first goal. I think that was a big deal for him. He is a Newcastle fan. He is, you know, he looks to me, he seems like a really timid, kind of quiet guy. He just needs that bit of fire in his belly, and hopefully that might give him a bit of motivation. I think played out of position, but I think that's probably the only position he's going to get.
Doesn't play out of position because nobody plays out of position.
He's a wing back now.
I forgot.
But next season he's going to be playing centre mid.
My wish would be for more than 3 people behind the bar at the bottom of the Gallowgate. That would be great. And if they knew how to change a line, how to change a barrel over, that would be amazing, because it was absolute carnage down there. It was absolutely horrendous. It was like awful scenes. So yeah, better bar service, please, is my wish. Right,
I'll put that down for the NUFC board meeting next week.
So we're gonna have to do this next bit.
Yeah,
we'll have to do this next bit. Yes, NUFC, use your position, please, to sort that bar stuff out. In fact,
I will.
Offer to do a shift yourself. Show them how it's done. You
know what? I've done it in the past.
Just get behind.
I've got experience, so
it may go down well. So really quickly, obviously we've got Aston Villa coming up. I think the lads might do a preview as well, possibly. But it's a little bit of news about Villa. Obviously they lost Grealish. They signed a boatload of players. It reminds me a lot of when Tottenham let Bale go and they signed 7 players. I think Villa they haven't quite signed 7, but they've signed quite a lot of players. But looks like Ollie Watkins could be back. He missed the first game of the season. Obviously, Danny Ings started with a goal. I think they started with a defeat away at Watford. Always tricky playing a newly promoted side.
Oh, you sound like Bruce there.
Oh, dear. So I hope maybe it's like
they're a very tricky team.
This is what he's done.
I've written down most of his patter, so maybe it's in
embedded.
now. Sorry, I am embedded.
Rip that up.
Obviously, Newcastle still be missing the same players, Dummett, Dubravka, obviously Darlow, which we've touched on. So it looks like Woodman will be in goal again, which I don't have any real worries about Woodman in goal. I think it was from what he had to do. I think he was let down a lot by the players around. So what do we make? Let's get some predictions for the Villa game. You can touch on as well, players you'd like to see in the game. But just real quick, Laura, can I come to you first?
Yeah.
What would you do with the team, and then maybe it's a prediction if you're feeling.
Yeah, I think it's
fancy.
I'm going to be a complete hypocrite here because I'm going to sound like Bruce, but I think he'll definitely change it quite dramatically because I don't think he'll be anywhere near as attacking as he was against West Ham in the first half, because obviously he hasn't got the home crowd there and he's back. So I do think it'll be quite defensive. I think he'll have to change the defence. I'd put Lascelles and Shaw in. And then I think Villa, obviously they got beat off Watford. I think that's their first game at home. The crowd will have a massive impact on that. I do worry about Ings. But then on the other hand, didn't Mings have an absolute mare against Maximum last time? So I'm hoping. I think it'll be quite tight. I think it'll be quite defensive from our point of view. And I think I'm going to go 1-1.
1-1. We'll take that. Sam, I'll come to you. What do you think team-wise? And then have you got a prediction for us?
Yeah, pretty similar in terms of I think it'll be a draw, a 1-1. I don't think he'll make a lot of subs or changes because he's really stubborn. And even though some players didn't make particularly good games, I think the only change you'll potentially make, unless there's an injury, is bringing Lascelles back into the defence. And yeah, I'm going to go for a 1-1. I think we might be able to mix up just because of St. Maximum. If it wasn't for him, I think we get beat because I don't see the fluidity. I just don't see us holding it all together.
Yeah. Graham, what do you reckon? Positivity all the way?
No, soz.
No.
The thing is, right, firstly, I would... Steve, if you are watching this, can you please get Tranquillo Benate's number and ask him to bring Javier Manquillo out of hiding, because that would be nice. Also, so he can play at Villa on Saturday, and also play Jamal Lewis, and also play Shaw and Lascelles, and then that would be nice. But I don't think that will happen. So
No.
I think we'll get battered 3-1.
Oh.
Roger, you're going to have to end it on a positive, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
6-0 win. 6-0.
So I think
he will make those changes and we'll win 8-0.
There we go. You see?
I think
Get Steve on the blower.
I think we need to exercise the demons of relegation from Villa Park once more. So I think we are going to.
Nice.
I think I would bring back Lascelles. I would keep Clark in because I like a left-sided centre back on that side. I would ensure that Emil Kraft is sent to Donnell Milne that day to go and pick up some carpet samples or something. And I would have
You go yellow.
I was going to say beige because he's so boring.
You know,
Beige.
I'm sure he's a lovely bloke. I'm not.
I know. Sorry, Emil.
But yeah, he's never
He's
left
Just
the
got
game
a picture of him picking out
He's had a
carpet
great
samples
game.
now. It's really weird.
But they look less beige online. So I'd have Lascelles in and I'd have Shaw in because Shaw can bring the ball out and that pushes John Joe Shelby further up because he's going to play John Joe Shelby even though I've told him not to. So I would keep John Joe Shelby in because he's going to be in anyway. There's no point saying anything otherwise. And I would definitely bring in Jamal Lewis, and I think he needs a run of games. He needs 10 games. He's
confidence.
Yeah. I would try and if Manquillo is fit, but I don't think
you just need to get him out of that hotel. It's a nightmare, man. God.
But I do think I'm going to go with a win. Fuck it. I'm going to say we're going to win 2-1. And I think Wilson's going to score again. And I think Ryan Fraser's going to score at some point during the game. Maybe he's from a centre midfield position.
I reckon so.
Maybe he's from his actual position. Who fucking knows? Anyway, so I'm going to go with a positive. We'll finish on a positive. But that kind of wraps it up. We've just snuck over the hour by about 8 minutes, but I'm sure our followers won't mind that. Please remember to like and subscribe, obviously, all of the Gallowgateshots on the YouTube channel, and then all of our social media platforms. That would be great. Check out the How Are the Lasses podcast as well when that gets up and running for this season, and obviously and get involved with Sam. Sam does a bit of writing as well, don't you, for anyone's game as well? So check out that, and wait with bated breath for the Speedo book, The Man Behind the Smile, which Graham Bell has written. Absolutely fantastic.
Not written it yet. I'm writing it. Don't put so much pressure on me, man.
But keep an eye out for it because it sounds really interesting. I'll certainly be buying that one. Hopefully, I can get some sort of discount because I'm quite tight. But yeah, so
50p off.
And once again, thank you everybody for listening. Thank you for all the comments. Hopefully, I tried to get as many of them on the screen there. It's quite tricky. I'm not very ambidextrous and quite, so I'm quite difficult to get that on. But thank you very much for those guys who've joined in live. And thank you to those people who maybe watch a little bit later on. Laura, thank you very much for joining me again. You're
Very
absolute
welcome.
legend. And Sam, thank you for joining me. Graham, thank you very much for joining us. And hopefully everybody's well. And we go into the weekend game with Villa, and we get an absolute romping 1-1, possibly no 2-1. However, the lads
8-0, remember?
Oh, sorry, 8-0. But thanks very much for joining us, and keep your eyes out for more content from the Gallowgateshots team. Take care, everybody. Have an absolutely mint night. Take care. Bye bye.